Hi, I'm Randy Varsava. I'm a Christian businessman, and I've got a story about some Catholic nuns to tell you today. I was over at the big truck dealer getting some maintenance done on my semi, and I'm standing there doing my thing around the truck, and I see a minivan pull up out front, and a nun gets out of this minivan. She gets out, looks around, goes to the front of the car, and she keeps going back and forth in the front of the car looking at the car. And the Holy Spirit speaks to me and says, go over there right now to that car. So I dropped what I was doing and went right over to the car. And I said, Sister, is there something I can help you with? And she said, well, can't you see the lights? She barked at me. And I looked at the lights in the car and they looked all right to me. And she says, the lights, don't you see? The lights aren't working. So I looked at them and I didn't know what was not working. So I didn't know what to say to her. And I let her, she needed to cool off, I guess. And she said a couple things. And I said, well, there's a Toyota dealer just a couple thousand feet down the road. You can get looked after there. They sell these things. And then she said, oh, well, thank you, And I said, okay, well, thank you. Bye-bye. So I went back over to my truck. And away she went. And the Lord spoke to me and said to me, follow them over to the dealer. So I wrapped up my truck and I said to my wife, I said, we're going to jump in the pickup truck now. We're going to go down and see what's going to go on down at that dealer. So we went down there and I walked through the showroom into the service bay and I walked around the car and I walked up to them and I said, are they looking after you all right here? And she said, oh yes. And then she recognized it. She said, are you the man like that? And she recognized me that I was the one that stopped there at where they had stopped and said, do you need any help? And she said, well, yeah, they're changing a light or whatever it was that they were doing. And I'm going to check my notes here. And she starts telling me, right, she speaks right up and starts telling me her story about this car being broke down. And what had happened was the day before, the car was going along and it quit. And it was probably 100 degrees the day before. It was very, very hot outside. And somebody, a truck driver actually, had stopped to help them to see if he could get the car going. And she said that he worked on their car in that hot weather for something like 2 hours, and finally he couldn't do anything with it. So somebody called a tow truck. Tow truck came. One of the nuns went with the tow truck and to look after that. And then so they got separated, and then two of them were left literally standing on the street corner because there was only room for one person besides the driver and the tow truck. So they were put out on the street, literally. And a passerby stopped and asked them, do you need help or something? And anyway, gave them a ride over to some flea bag hotel. So they went there, and the other nun must have came back to the hotel, and they spent the night there. And the next day, they got called, and the car was ready. Well, they didn't have any money for this hotel, and she didn't quite explain all that to me, but so they had to stay in that hotel overnight, and they didn't have the money. So in the morning, when they went to get the car, they picked up the car and they drove it away, and the car drove about a quarter of a mile and something went wrong with it, and that's when I saw them. So she explained that to me, and she said, now the car, it's not working properly, it needs to be fixed again somehow. So all this stuff, and there was actually more to it than that. I'd have to remember all the, I wouldn't be wrong to say there was a lot of crazy things that happened to them, just trying to destroy their weekend. Well, then she started to explain to me. I said to her, look at whatever it is to fix this. I said, in the hotel, I said, what would it take to fix all of this? Tell me a dollar figure. And she threw a dollar figure at me of, I don't know, maybe $400, $450, $400. So I said, okay, well, and they were very upset. These nuns were very upset. Come to find out that they'd been ministering at some kind of a church not far from where I was, and they were ministering to the poor there somehow. They were feeding the poor and also helping to build a building and clean up a building and put a building together or something like that. And they were finished doing that. And then yesterday they were on their way home to Chicago. And that's when this stuff happened. So I said to her, well, what would it take to make all this go away, kind of a thing? And like I said, somewhere around $400. I said, well, okay. I said, let's approach it like that. You know, $400 will fix this. And I said, I'll give you more money than that so that you got lots of money to get home, gas money. So I said, and they were Americans. They're from the United States. So I said to her, well, I'll give you $1,000 and that'll for sure, that'll get you, you know, your hotel tonight, all your gas, food, everything. You'll get you home all set. Well, meanwhile, there was a second nun and she kind of butted in sort of in the conversation, and she starts explaining that this particular sect of nuns that they belong to, that's all they do is feed the poor. They don't do anything else. She said they have no income, they don't make money, they don't have a job. All they do is feed the poor. They've probably taken one of these vows of poverty, and they have nothing to support them, no means whatsoever. The only thing they have is what people give to them. So this nun is explaining all this to me in detail about how all they do is feed the poor. Their whole life is dedicated to that, and she's explaining all these different things in great detail. And I had just told her her friend a few minutes ago that yeah, I'll give you $1,000 and they'll fix everything. So as her friend went on, or as she went on, and telling the story and all these details in it, I raised my finger to her to kind of like to get her to be quiet, and I said, well, uh, like I said, I'll give you $2,000, and I said that'll fix everything, and that'll be even better. And she still keeps talking. She's going on and on and on about all the details of their ministry and all this stuff. And I'm very patient. I'm extremely respectful of nuns, and I'm being really patient. I thought, well, I'll listen to her for an hour if that's what it takes, if that's what she needs. So she's going on and on and on about this ministry stuff and all these things they do. And finally, it really had gone on to be a long time. So I raised my finger again. I said, actually, what I really meant was, I said, I'll give you $3,000. So when I said that, then she got a bit of a smile on her face, and I think she nodded. I said, now, what we will have to do is, I said, I don't have that much money on me. So I said, we'll have to go over to my bank. So they followed me over to my bank, and we got her the money that I told her we would get. And when we were there, we shared stories back and forth, things that they'd experienced in their life and things that we've experienced in our lives. And we had a really excellent time of talking and fellowship. Um, they they could hardly believe what was taking place as it was taking place. But I think the one particular older one, she was a very astute judge of character to be able to size up situations, and she just went with it. When I said, what we would do, and you go ahead and follow me over to the bank, she just said, yeah, and she nodded her head and spun around and got right in the car and followed us. She didn't. There was no delay. So anyway, yeah, we went over to the bank and we fellowshipped out front for quite a while. We really did share some marvelous stories back and forth, some things that they've experienced, some things that we've experienced, and they thanked me profusely, of course. And I told them that it was my pleasure to be able to be there to help them like that. That I was able to be used as an instrument of the Lord to bring, a positive close to this really unsavory weekend that they had to spend. So that's today's testimony, the story of the nuns. Thanks for listening. Bye bye.